Welcome back to Bannerlord Abridged. In the previous part I was out and about with the mercenary armies, participating in various battles for my own amusement. I thought I'd be gaining a whole bunch of money and status or something, but that didn't really happen, and we did have some trouble when it came to sieges as well, because the AI just got itself killed. So while I did manage to have some fun with the game at least, I don't think I actually made any progress, or any obvious progress. So I was starting to think about not being a mercenary. But before that, there still were a couple more battles I went through, so let's take a look. And the first one was this castle attack. Guess it doesn't really matter whose castle or where we are, I'm just here for the stats and in theory for the money. I can make use of our little archery shields near the enemy walls to set up and just start sniping away to grab me some bow experience. And the nice thing about this is when the enemies shoot back, they might not hit you since you're shooting through this gap. And more to the point, they tend to shoot at your allies. And the nice thing about our allies is they don't really bother using the shield. They're just kind of standing out in the open behind me. You might be able to hear there's constant pain noises as a blob of guys behind me is getting killed by the arrows. And I'm grabbing this XP, all very nice. A bit later I moved over to the gate to help out a bit here. Saw that ballista up there and was particularly interested. Then saw some faces poking out over the wall and I was like, well, here's a chance for some headshots. Unfortunately, this second guy proved very resistant. We don't have enough bow skill yet to actually reliably hit targets, so we need a bit of luck still, but that should go away over time. And yes, I climbed up because I wanted to go on the ballista. It looks like you don't really get a crosshair for where to target it, but it seems I managed to work out how to use it, and yes, it does work and it does a lot of damage. I wonder if you get XP for shooting people with the ballista. Anyway, after that, the army went on to attack some village with just a few militia in it. I took this chance to practice my polearm skill in a very painful and embarrassing process where I spend many minutes trying to get one kill against a guy who's running away, and this proves to be exceedingly difficult for some reason, but in theory, we're getting better at that. Now the army ended up being pursued by over 1,000 enemy troops, and I thought, you know what guys, I just remembered my kit has a thing. I took my leave of the army and there doesn't appear to be any penalty to just sort of running away the moment things look like they're going to be bad. So that's nice. Although I didn't completely run away, I just abandoned that army to its fate. I went and joined a different one instead, a bigger one, and one that was doing something a bit more productive. They were besieging this castle. And indeed, it's pretty much the same situation we just saw at the start of the episode, only easier. And I did exactly the same thing, just went and stood here at the barricades and started sniping away. Although in this battle, the enemy had the audacity to shoot back at me. Luckily, by this point, I've got some okay armor. I'm much more armored than the regular foot soldiers, so we can tank the arrows pretty well. In this fight, I even bothered to go inside at the end and participate in the clear-up of the enemies behind the gate. And then, being extremely nice, I didn't even shoot my own troops. As I said, I don't know if you get experience for shooting your own troops, but certainly worth keeping in mind to totally min-max your build. Anyway, then right after that castle assault, something more interesting happened, so let's actually take a look at this. A giant decisive field battle, exactly what I'm looking for. At first they came at us with a bunch of skirmishing cav, and here's me taking it upon myself to try and get at least one kill with the spear. And again, finding it very difficult, and this guy, as I chased him, led me back to their main force on the other side of the map, so that was a bit of a mistake. In come the arrows, and I'm going to get out of there. Basically, I just went and hid behind our force until it finally advanced, and a brawl broke out, and now it's time for us to snipe bits of XP here and there. Thought I'd go behind their lines and do a nice rampage with my spear. The only problem is I suck too bad. That horse takes the blow for one enemy, then we make a load of missed attacks, and before we know it we've just ridden past the whole battle and ridden into the enemy's reinforcements instead. I thought, well, I'll just rampage through the reinforcements on my own and this will be fine. The problem was, it's not fine. I think I was too used to playing in the older Mountain Blade, where, as far as I remember, it was okay to kind of rampage on your own through loose enemy formations, because they would tend to ignore you. In this case, we took a whole bunch of arrows, somebody turned round as I was running at them and cut me down or something, and then, as we just saw, didn't do very well when it comes to fighting in melee on foot. I died pretty much instantly, in fact to the first guy who attacked me. And that's my big worry, because I can't do the directional blocking controls and I'm not equipped as a character for melee fighting. We basically die in any case where we have to face enemies face to face, so we need to try and be more cowardly really. Eventually our side wins the battle, so we get away with it. And I'm not sure, but I think you get the same reward even if you didn't really participate in much of the battle because you died at the start like I did, we still get a bunch of prisoners and loot despite barely helping at all. So that's nice, I guess. Now moving on, we end up facing another castle assault. So just like earlier, it's time to grab some bow XP, and this time I just couldn't be bothered with the whole standing behind barriers and being safe thing. I came up to where the guys were climbing up the ladder and just stood right next to them. Figured the enemy are probably going to be shooting at other things, so they'll just ignore me. And since we're nice and close, we can bag those headshots, look for all the heads poking out above the walls, and get what damage we can. Because you do more damage with a headshot, I think you actually get more XP. I think it's based on how much damage you're doing. So really, if I had a better bow, I would level up faster. I've been hoping that someone would drop a bow at some point, but I haven't seen a single bow appear in the loot, or at least not a bow that's above the tier 1, the one I'm currently using, that is. Anyway, for some action this time, I decided to actually climb up and fight in the melee. I've got my spear, and because it's got a nice long reach, I can kind of stab at the enemy while they're distracted fighting with the rest of our side's infantry. The downside to this is that not only do I have bad polearm skill, but I think I have a bad polearm because we're barely doing any damage even when the enemy aren't wearing armor. So again, I think we're just being held back by having absolutely trash equipment and trash skills, plus trash gameplay skills, like right there some guy was hammering me and I was just unable to block. This time I'm just like, I'm not even going to try and fight in melee. My main priority when someone looks at me is to just run away. Like this guy, he turned around and I was instantly like, nope, not even going to risk it, let's just stay alive. There was a bit more action for me though, because the battle didn't end. There was one guy somewhere still alive, and after searching the map, the sound of him walking about eventually led me to this building. And then I went down this hole thinking, is he in here? And yes, he is in here. He's trapped in the gatehouse, and now I'm trapped in here with him, and he immediately owns me up. So that's good. Eventually I think somebody destroyed the gate. The AI was messing up and wasn't able to open the gate or something. And then I left the army, and now we're finally going to get to the moving on in the game part of this episode, where I've made no money and really not much progress at all after all that mercenary action, but I've had my fun. And I started thinking, is it like in Old Mountain Blade where you can buy businesses? So I went around town and finally found an answer. I didn't know who to talk to work this out, but eventually realized you can talk to businesses and just straight up buy them if you can get enough money, usually between 10 and 20,000. So far we haven't come close to making that much money, but once we have a business it will make us money. So like the hardest part is right now. It's going to get easier and easier. We just have to get over the first hurdle of giving ourselves that initial income. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have to play the game, I'm afraid to say. We need to just make money and not focus on trying to do things that I find personally amusing. We need some cash. This was the point in the game when I discovered that buying a bunch of mules gives you loads of carry capacity. And I'm not sure the mules eat food either, so this is just free carry capacity really. But we also need to buy food, and this was the main reason I wanted the mules, because I couldn't carry enough food before. What kept happening was I'd join the army steals your food because the AI doesn't know how to get its own food and stuff, and then you just have to leave the army really quickly. So I wasn't able to follow the army around for very long, but now I can buy a bunch of food. The AI will still steal it off me if I join an army, but you do get influence for that. The influence gets converted to money again later on. I'm not sure if this really makes sense financially, but it's something. And of course the other thing we need to do is just straight up kill looters and bandits, because you get just as much money from taking out a small party on your own and getting all the loot as you do from participating in a giant battle, getting loot that is for some reason really bad, and only getting a small amount of it because it's shared out between a large army. Now I have quite a lot of gameplay of me doing this, and it's incredibly unuseful for this series, so what I thought I'd do is be really facetious. I'm going to show you all of this one looter battle in order to give you an idea of exactly what it takes to bring down a not particularly strong enemy party. And then I'll never speak of it again, and we'll just jump to a couple of interesting battles, and then all the way to the end when I was done taking out 100 of these parties or something. So, there's not much to say about it. I'm just trying to kill enemies and failing miserably with my low bow skill. I don't really need to because my party will win on their own as well. Got pelted with some rocks, managed to grab some damage with a polearm there and get some experience as well, still sorely needed. And I'm sure if we wait long enough everyone will die. Looks like we're about there now. So we've defeated a looter party. You get like our 1 influence, our 1 renown, and a tiny bit of morale for the party as well. And they're going to drop their pajamas or something. You get some incredibly unuseful things when you fight looters. Fighting bandits, as mentioned before, is the real thing to do. So there we go, we got something. Might be worth a few coins. I think we made like 100 coins or something in profit from selling stuff. So that's great, just have to do that 100 more times or something, and then we'll be in the money. I also decided now to switch from having a sword to having 2 sets of arrows. We're going to forget about the sword because it's going so suckly whenever I try to use it. We're just giving up on it. Now there's one other way to make money, and that is to do the tournaments, but to actually gamble everything on them. I figured that since I seem to just win all the tournaments I do, I'll start doing them again and gamble everything. But here was a challenging round. Now it's 2-on-1, and one of the guys has heavy armor, so it's really hard for me to lower his health. By the way, some people were saying in the comments of the first episode that shield blocking is directional in some way. It doesn't appear to be the case because I'm definitely not doing the direction controls correctly and I'm still making all the blocks. I'm guessing it's directional, but it's also automatic, like I would like it to be with the weapon, so it actually doesn't matter that it's directional. Anyway, in this case, you can see we managed to take down one of the 2 opponents, and now we're stuck in a slapping match with this guy. But every time we hit him, it barely does any damage, because in these tournaments, you are allowed to cheat by just wearing super heavy armor, unlike other participants. We lose our shield, this sucks, now we're in big trouble. But I actually do miraculously manage to do a couple of the blocks, and then just about take that guy down on the verge of being taken down myself, saved by the difficulty level there. And as it happens, we go on to have an easier fight later in the tournament, and we take the win. So I grab like 800 gold from bets, and I think I got 600 gold selling the shoes that I got as well. So that's much more profitable than our previous tournament attempts. Now though, it seems I have relapsed. Unfortunately, I couldn't resist going to join the army again and participating in these battles by the looks of things. I think I did still legitimately have hope that this would be a good money-making idea. The thing is, you only get like 1 influence from fighting in these big battles, and you can also get 1 influence by killing like 5 looters in one battle. And the influence is what determines how much money you get paid as a mercenary. So one upside to me grinding looters right now is that I get paid an unusually high amount, because you can take out party after party real fast and get a bunch of money from your mercenary contract, although that isn't very much money overall. So yes, doing these battles isn't good for that, but maybe I could get some good loot. I still had hope for that. I have found 1 valuable piece of loot I think so far. I think it's the armor I'm wearing right now is really valuable, something like that. But there was one other reason actually, and that is that I actually like doing these battles. I'll mention it here. What I usually do when filming for these abridged campaigns is I film in the last hour of the work day. This means the playing of the game can be work, so I don't mind doing things that are really boring in order to grind through to get to some footage that I might actually use in the videos. But in the case of this game, I was playing it on the weekends, so I wanted to do something fun, and that's really all there is to it. I don't know if doing this really is a good strategy, and I'm pretty sure it isn't, but I found it entertaining. We're still not really doing much damage or having much impact on the battle. I feel like my gameplay's gotten better. I'm landing a lot of hits now. They're just not doing that much because my gear sucks. And one day, once we have a lot of money, we can just buy our way out of that problem, I guess. But we're going to save money for the business first. Looks like I've followed the army for a while and ended up doing another castle battle, so another chance to look for some heads and get the snipes in. Still don't have the accuracy to completely reliably do this, but by brazenly standing right under the wall to be as close as possible, you can more reliably get the hits, even if your bow skill isn't that good, and if your bow isn't that good either. Your accuracy does somewhat depend on your weapon, but I think it's mostly your bow level. Looks like I just gained a bow level right there. I've got a good thing going here where the enemy are kind of bunched up by a relatively low parapet, so I could just shoot arrows into them all day. And now we're getting to the good stuff at last. We're skipping forward to some time later. I've got 15k in the bank, and I'm here at some random city. It's time to find a business to buy. The first one I came across was this smithy, which I actually couldn't afford by like 100 gold or something, but I went out, sold something, and then bought the smithy. And now I'm going to jump to what happened after. I did it again. I went out, got the money again, and came to another town. This time I'll actually look at the buying process in case you're curious for how it goes. You go up to some guy in a shop, just say, can I buy this shop? And they'll usually agree. This one's a bit cheaper. the shop's already making something, and you have the choice to change what it makes. So these guys are real versatile, they just don't care what their life is. It's pretty useful. The thing is, it doesn't tell you, like in old Mount and Blade, what the costs for each one are. So each one will have a different amount of money it makes you, but you are left to guess what it is. I think you can take a look at what's available on the market and what the villages nearby are selling as well to try and work out maybe how profitable something will be. But I was guessing, so I bought a smithy and a woodworker or something. And as a result, now that I'm just wandering around, I'm still making money. I'm making a couple of hundred every day, and days pass pretty fast actually. So the money does rack up. Our profits are accelerating, and they were also accelerated by the fact that now I have a reasonable party. I can fight the looter bands that are like tons of guys, like this 40 bunch of looters. I think I saw some 80 ones as well. And while you might think you could take losses fighting such a big bunch of enemies, what tended to happen is they would run at you and then rout the second the fight started, so you don't really have to fight them. And now all we need to do is try to stop that precious experience from getting away. My polearm needs to kill them. Luckily for them, I suck. But yes, the idea is there, and that speeds up the process as well. I did keep things up with the tournamenting too. This is my favourite type of tournament, where it starts you off with a lance on horseback, because the enemy will get so distracted in these four-way fights that you can line up some nice juicy attacks. It's a taste of things to come, because you're getting to use a good spear, unlike what I usually do, so you can kill enemies in one hit. Nice and satisfying. And here we are, a bit later on, winning this tournament with a bit of the good old-fashioned shield and slappy techniques. Bit of money, a nice valuable hat to sell, that's all good. And what seemed to happen, for reasons I don't really understand, is that every single time I went to any town there would be a tournament. I'm not sure what the rules are for when a tournament's happening, but it just seemed like there was always a tournament. I was going across the map just visiting every town and doing all the tournaments basically. I didn't always win, but I usually won, so betting on myself was good enough for making money, and all the little prizes you get make money as well, and I was fighting some low-level parties as I went between these towns, of course, to get things like those useless items I'm selling right there. So yes, the money continued to roll in. Soon it rolled all the way up to the point when I could get another business. So here I am, somewhere, buying something. I think this time it was a wool workshop, and I had actually checked out the villages, so I was like, yes, these villages produce sheep, so I'll buy the wool workshop in town, thinking maybe that's how you get money, but it's also based on the price of the good they're selling, so I'm guessing cloth doesn't get you much. Who knows? Clearly I'm looking confident with my businesswoman walk as I leave the business slightly richer. Here's some footage from a tournament where I'm knocked out at the moment, but I noticed while these guys are stabbing impudently away at each other that the audience are all hideous. It reminds me of the things people were complaining about in Total War Rome 2 when it came out. Well, this game has it too, although not that it matters, since normally you can't really see the audience very well. They're looking good. I think in this tournament I was on a winning team or something, so I ended up making it through to the final and picking up that win right there. I do like the tournament gameplay, by the way. I'll mention that on top of my previous compliments for the small unit commanding in big battles gameplay that I had in part 1. I think it's really good, and both of those features could be the entire game if they really worked on them. Here's another tournament sometime, when this time the prize I got was a horse with an interesting name. I don't know what horse I have right now, but I think it's just one that's been dropped randomly, nothing special. So this new horse was something special. It has less health, but it's really fast compared to the horses I've been using before. And on top of having a load of ride skill, we can now speed across the battlefield with this new setup, and that's going to be quite fun. Then I got some more money and went to buy another business, and this is when the game hits me with a 3 business limit. I was really devastated by this because I was looking forward to becoming hideously rich by buying a business in like every town, or just buying all the businesses and just having all the money I needed and never having to think about cash again. But no, there's a 3 business limit. That's a definite downgrade on the business system from the older Mount and Blade. And I was just outraged because, yes, I was having fun actually making the money, thinking that I would be able to buy businesses with it. But now that I can't, well, I'm just making the money to spend it on stuff that I don't particularly enjoy spending it on, like paying people's wages. So that's a shame. There was one more way in which we could continue the bourgeoisie dream. That is to buy a caravan. You can spend a load of money, to make a party that goes around buying and selling things. So it's basically like a mobile business. It's also a passive income, only it can die, so it's not quite as safe. So eventually I got the money to do it. You have to have a companion in your party to do it apparently as well. So I send off this person next to me. I heard a few companions here and there, but I've never really looked into who they are or what they're up to. Anyway, now I'm punching kids in the street. I guess I'm bored. This has no effect, by the way. The AI just sort of stares brain dead at you. And you can get inside people's heads as well. We're pressing up and talk at the same time. It's pretty good. Anyway, clearly I'm entertaining myself. Once that was done, it's time for the next phase in the campaign. Now that we've got loads of money coming in, or some money coming in, it's time to go and get serious about the wars. Now that I'm clan tier 2 by having enough renown, I'm allowed to join factions properly, so not as a mercenary. I can join up as a noble of that faction. And that's what I wanted to do. First, I need to stop being a mercenary. I can click Leave Kingdom here, but the message kind of implies this is going to be a bad thing. It's annoying because to stop being a mercenary, you have to talk to the same person who you talked to when you were hired. You can't talk to anyone in the faction or their faction leader or something. It has to be the same guy. So in this case, I didn't leave Kingdom after it gave me a warning message, and I went around actually trying to find whoever it was who hired me at some point. Eventually thought, no, I'm never going to do it. I'm just going to click Leave Kingdom and see what happens. Luckily, that message is lying if you're a mercenary. There's no dishonor or anything like that. So there we go, we've stopped being a mercenary. And now we can go back to what I wanted to do in part 1, to fight for our loyal Khuzait brothers. It's time for the Mongols to take over stuff, and we can now join up properly. We can go here to the faction leader, in fact, and offer our services. This means that since we're a lord, we're going to be eligible to get territory. You also get money similar to being a mercenary. They just pay you some passive income as well for being in the faction. So that's all good stuff. What this next phase of the campaign will be then is basically fighting the faction war. The green faction is going to try and take over, and we're going to try and help them. There is another option, by the way, and that is starting your own faction, but I guess you need tons of money and troops to do that. I'm sure it's possible, but it doesn't feel possible for me right now. Anyway, we go through the oath, which I'm sure we'll just break at some point, and now we are officially a member of the Khuzait faction. We're going to be eligible for receiving territory now, so that's the next main game objective. As well as just helping the green faction take land, we want to get some land for ourselves, to get a fief or to get a castle or something. It's going to be a long way to the top. As the lowest noble in the faction, we're unlikely to get given any decent territory as things get going. So we're going to have to prove ourselves and try to make a big deal of ourselves. And with the fact we have this passive income from businesses, we can put together a nice party to help us out with that. So we'll be gradually working through all this for not just the next part, but a lot of parts I expect, since this is the meat of the entire game. Join me next time to see how it gets going.